welcome. This is Errol Williams here. How you doing? Hope all is well. I'd like to say good evening to everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to this special webinar, a webinar for singles. I'm so excited to be a part of this webinar, and I want to say thank you so much for logging in. We are about to get started in 2 minutes or so. So please sit back and get yourself a cup of tea or coffee, whatever it is that you do best, for we're about to get started in 2 minutes time. There has been some changes, and I will let you know about those changes shortly, but we do get started in just about 2 minutes time. So again, welcome and thank you so much for joining the webinar. Appreciate you being here. Now, if you have any challenges whatsoever, please type those in the chat room to your right, or you can actually text that to me on the text number below, or even email that to me, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. It's such a beautiful weather here in the United Kingdom. I am so hot. Probably can't see how hot I am or how much I'm sweating, but it really is really warm in this room, and I'm so appreciative of that. So please let me know who you are, where you're from. It's good to see so many people online straight away. Appreciate the fact that you're here, and thank you so much. Do let me know who you are, where you're from, if you don't mind. And if you have any questions or comment, please do not hesitate to type those in the chat room to your right, or text me or email me, and I'll be able to respond. Now, you may want to send me something privately. You can do so in the chat room to your right, or you can text that to me privately. If you do so privately, I won't use your name, obviously, but I will indeed endeavor to address your question or comment as possible. As I said, there are some changes. So next 30 seconds, we will get started on this webinar. Once again, thank you. And also, I want to say, for those of you who are coming through the Google Plus end, there are some of you who are coming through the registration system, and we thank you for that. And then there are those who are coming from the Google Plus end, and you can't see my chat room, the one that the registered people can see, but you can communicate with me through text. There is a chat room for those who are on the Google Plus end. Is to your top right, and if you want to make any comments in there, I'll pick up those later. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Well, let's get started then. Let's get started with the show. I do have a major apology to make to everyone. Sister Shez Christopher, who was to do this webinar with me, cannot make it, at all. So I didn't want to cancel the webinar because she was not able to come. We were hoping to have at least 2 people, but for some reason, she's unable to actually make the webinar tonight. But I decided that I would still go ahead with the webinar. And if you have any questions or comments throughout, please don't hesitate to actually put your comments to the right. What I thought I would do, on the basis that Shez Christopher cannot make it, was that I would pose to you the questions that we were going to put to her. There were 11 questions that we had to put to Shez, and we were hoping she would be able to make it, but unfortunately she can't. And I want to put those to you. So it would be great if you would be able to respond or comment in the chat room and let us know what your thoughts are and feelings are as we go through. So I do apologize for that indeed. Okay, let me proceed forward. I want to start with this particular statement, is that this webinar that I'm doing is not a church webinar. It's not a church event. I do a church webinar on a Monday. On a Monday, I do what we call a Monday night Bible studies. That's a church event, Church of God of Prophecy. This is a personal event. It's my own personal event. I am the owner with somebody else in terms of Singles Direct. This is something I'm doing personally. So this has nothing, and I want to repeat, this has nothing to do with church, okay? So I wanted to make that very clear. It's interesting, actually, as I speak to singles up and down the country. Now, let me just introduce myself. I've never been single in the sense that ever since I left school, I've always been with someone, which is my wife currently. And I've been married now for over 30 years, etc. And I've known her for 40 years or 37 years. So I have not been single, but I've been around enough single people to have a little idea of some of the things which I have picked up and so on. I have daughters. I have 5 daughters, and all 5 of them are single. I have lots of cousins and relatives who are also single. Doesn't necessarily mean I understand singleness in its entirety, of course not. But I do understand a little bit to go ahead with this webinar tonight without Shez being here or without any other person being here to answer some of the questions I have. But one of the things that keep popping up over and over, and I had this discussion before I started this webinar, is that many people, whether single or not, may refer to singleness as being a curse. Now, the question in my mind is, where do people get that perception or that idea that singleness is a curse, etc., etc., etc.? And I think it's really is a sad thing, because one of the things I've noticed whenever I try to, for example, in the church, try to appoint someone to actually head up the singles department, it's a major issue. It's a major issue. Hardly anybody wants to do it because there seems to be this stigma attached to singleness. And I'm quite surprised. I'm quite shocked about it, because I'm trying to find somebody who would head the department up and who would, you know, do their best to work with the singles to find out what they want and how we can achieve that. And I find hardly anybody wants to do it. And when we do find somebody to head the department and they try to put on events and activities, I find people that don't want to come. You know, I'm not going to that, etc., etc., etc. And so there is this idea, not just in the UK, and I found that to be also in other countries like America and in Jamaica that I have visited and that I've heard people talk about singleness. It's as though they feel that because they're single, it's a disadvantage in the sense that you know, something is wrong with them. Or you often hear the comment, and people say it to me, and even tonight someone said it to me, you know, something must be wrong with you. How could you be so beautiful, young, and not have a boyfriend or a husband in that case? There must be something wrong. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, if you're here tonight and you are single, or you were single at one stage, what's your thought? Have you come across this? And I would love to hear your thoughts and your views on this, because this is very, very important. I really do believe that this is a very, very important issue. So what's your thoughts? Do you come across the same thing that I'm talking about, that singleness is referred to as a curse or a major disadvantage? Or do people look down on you because you're single? Does that make sense? Do people you know, treat you differently because you're single, etc.? What's your experience? Now, you may not want to talk to me where everybody can see that you're typing, but you can actually type, you know, privately. You can do so privately, or you can actually text me what your thoughts are or what your views are, and whatever you say, I will stop and then I would look at that. Denise, welcome. Yes, this is true. It happens. Wow. And wow. I actually say wow. You know, for this to happen all the time. The other question I may have asked is, who is it that's making single people feel guilty? You and me, or make them feel as if it's a curse? Who is it that's saying it? Is it other people who are married, or is it other people who have their partners? Because if, for example, you're single and you feel this way, or somebody has said it to you, it must be, I would imagine, not another single person. That would be my assumption. So who is it that's saying these things and making, you know, single people feel as if, you know, they're worthless or they're nothing, or they're not able to achieve, as if something is wrong with them? Because this is not true. You know, singleness is not a curse. It happens a lot in church. Wow. That is amazing, isn't it? But I would imagine, whether it's happening in the church or it's happening, let's say, outside the church, it must be happening from people who are not single. And that would be my assumption. And it'd be good to find out from you, is that the case? Is it people who are married who are making these comments or making these innuendos or these suggestions, etc.? It happens from both married and single men and women. Actually, I find that quite strange, actually, that a single person would operate in such a way to make another single person feel, you know, indifferent towards their singleness. You know, I really find that strange. Okay, Sharon, welcome, Sharon. Some married people, sometimes even ministers, married people, forget that they were. Yes, I would agree with that. You know, it's the saying, isn't it, that, you know, you forget that where you're coming from, type of thing. And I think it's to me how sometimes we behave, that we don't realize that we are hurting other people. We're making other people feel a certain way based upon how we behave, based upon the questions we ask, based upon the things we say. And sometimes we're in the company of people, we don't know what to say, and we just say something that comes to mind, and sometimes the wrong thing comes up. But you know, there's a saying that says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So maybe that's what they were thinking and feeling anyway. But I want to say this before I go into the questions, which I had prepared, is that singleness, there is no reference that I know, period, being a pastor or being a Christian, that suggests to me in any way, shape, or form that singleness, or a person being single, they're being cursed by God or they're being cursed by somebody. I just don't understand that ideology, and so on. So when someone comes up to you and say, you know, what's a single person like you do? What's a beautiful person like you doing being single? Then there's a lot of loaded points behind that. And I want to say again, singleness, in my view, I've never seen it anywhere, it's certainly not accursed. And let's look at it another way as well, is that I want to use a point that Oprah Winfrey made. Now, I don't know if it's true, but I believe there are some truth in it. It may not be totally true, but I believe that there are some truth in it. And I hope that what I'm going to relate to you is true to what she said. She said, if every black man in America got married, now this is what she said, if every black male in America got married, 70% of black women would still be single. There would still be an issue of 70%. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about that for a moment. If every black man in America, she said, I don't know if the statistics are true, but I heard her say it. I wasn't dreaming, I wasn't sleeping. I heard her say it, and I don't know where the tape is or the video that I watched it on, but she said if every black man in America got married, 70% of black women would still be single. Then the question I have to ask myself, because another statistics prove that more men were born at birth. At birth, more male were born. That's one statistics I read somewhere. I don't have it before me. I read it somewhere. Now, if that is true, or even if the same amount of men were born to women, what's happened to our men? What's happened to our men? Okay, number one is we have a male prison population that is really overcrowded in America and in the United Kingdom. We have just under 100,000 prisoners in prison in the United Kingdom, of which the majority of those, about 90% of those, are men. So straight away, you have men who are incarcerated, they're in prison. Then you have another issue, is that a lot of our men are dying on the street, being killed, either through knives or through gun or through other particular issues that are taking place, whether it be drugs related or otherwise. A lot of our men are dying on the street. Also, a lot of our men are homosexuals. They're not interested in women. And as a result of that, there is also a shortage. there are more of our men also that are in mental institution. This is a epidemic. It's really out of proportion. And that's why subjects like this are worth talking about. It's worth really addressing. So let me address the points that you're raising here. That comment is often made to older, more experienced women. Okay, thank you, Denise. Given the impression that you are doing something wrong or are a nightmare in character. That is sad, actually, because when people don't know the facts or the reality of the situation, people just make assumptions. And I heard this comment, and I thought it's really profound comment, is that assumptions are the lowest form of information. Okay, assumption is one of the lowest form of information. People make assumption about people, etc., as to why they're not single, and that's really sad. And one thing I'd put to you, and I think this is really a powerful point. Mrs. Roosevelt, who was the first lady to one of the president, she said that no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. I think that's really a powerful statement. No one can make you feel inferior without your permission. So if people come along and they make comment to you because you're single, that causes you to feel a certain way, I like what Roosevelt said. No one can make you feel guilty without your permission. And that is such a powerful statement, I believe. I really believe it is. So, I pity people who would make those comments. I pity people who would make the comments about, singleness being a curse, and it certainly is not a curse. And thank you very much for those comments. Let me share with you then some of the questions which were prepared. And the interesting thing about it, these questions were not prepared by me, in fact. And the first one here is, what is it like to be single at your age? And maybe you want to type that in, this was one of the questions we were going to pose to our speaker who is unable to make it tonight. What is it like to be single at your age? What is your thoughts? And I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please type that into the chat room. And there are enough people here that are able to see. Now, I do see a hand that's gone up. Somebody has asked to come in. Now, if you put your hand up, let me just explain. If you put your hand up to speak, it means that when I give you permission, if you have a webcam or also, it means that you're coming on the show with me to be a presenter with me. So if you put your hand up to speak, that's what that means. Does that make sense? So I'm going to give you, I think it's Lorenzo that's put your hand up. I think, yeah, I'm going to invite you. So if you have a webcam, it means that you're able to come on the show and other people will see you and hear you. And that's the idea. So if you tick that button right at the top right, which says request to speak, I then will give you permission to come onto the webinar. Okay. So what is it like to be single at your age? That was the question. Now, there are, for example, some people who are single, let's say under 30, let's say under 25, for example. And I tell you one thing that I pick up from this. I'm going to say a few things until I hear from you, or if you give me your thoughts. What does it feel like? What is it like to be single at your age? I don't know how old you are. Maybe you're 30 or so. But I've heard some women say, I've heard women say it, single women say this, that I'm running out of time. I've heard that. My biological clock is ticking. I've heard those from single women. And I've heard sometimes the concern in a single woman's, when I say single women, it's mostly single women that I'm around, not so much the men, but it's mostly single women who are here, there is that concern about the fact that if they get married too late, then the possibility of children may not be there. So I tend to find that the older the single women around me get, there is a greater concern that's placed in the conversation that I have with them. But what's your thoughts? How do you feel? You can send me a note privately. I will not call your name. I'm just going to check my text as well, just to make sure that I don't miss anything out. Okay. Okay, no one has texted me, so I can't see anything there. All right. So the thing I've seen is that around me, and as I said before, I have 5 daughters who are single. Well, they would say only 4 maybe out of the 5. My older daughter, well, they would tell me she's not single, and so on. And I have a lot of family members who are single, mostly women, 99% women at different age. And I've oftentimes have lots of different conversations with either it be my children or with members of my family or friends. And oftentimes there is that concern. Is it wrong to have that concern? Of course not. Of course it's not wrong to have that concern. Of course it's not wrong to talk about it. Of course it's not wrong to have certain feelings in relations to this question. That doesn't necessarily mean something is, wrong with the person because they're feeling that way or they're thinking that way. It certainly does make sense to me that people who, singles who are growing older in age and so on, have concerns, and there's nothing wrong with them sharing it, and there's nothing wrong with them talking about it and talking to other people as well who might be in the same position or same boat. The second question that I have here is many single people have a self-perception of being unattractive because they are not in a relationship. And how do you perceive yourself? And I think this is such a powerful question. It's loaded actually with information to me, because what it's saying to me is that if I'm single and I'm not in a relationship, then something must be wrong with me. Well, that is foolishness, especially the idea about the fact that I'm really attractive. I know I'm attractive. I know I'm a beautiful person, but I'm not in a relationship. It doesn't mean that I'm unattractive or you're unattractive. It doesn't mean that. And then someone would say, well, what does it mean? Well, it may mean that you have not found the right person or the person that you'd like to spend the rest of your life with. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't exist. It just means you have never met that person. So to have the idea that I'm unattractive because I'm not in a relationship, it brings a kind of self-doubt and even self-pity, and puts you into not an assertive position, but a very passive position. Now, I want to share these 4 life positions with you that you can adopt as a single person. Okay. And I want to share those with you. I don't have a slide for this as I speak of it from my head. So I want to share these 4 life positions with you that I see a lot of single people in. And then you have to ask yourself the question, are any of these lifestyles? No, you're definitely in one of the 4, by the way. In fact, you could be in 2 of the 4. But you got to ask yourself the question, am I in any of these? Okay, number 1 is the passive lifestyle, the passive position, which says, well, the passive position says, well, you're okay, I'm not okay. In other words, you're better than me. It's a position of being very self-conscious, very reserved, not very outgoing, not very friendly, think very highly of other people. but think very lowly of oneself. And that, to me, is a very sad state of fear to be in. If anyone here is in that position, is the position again, which says, you're better than me. I'm not good enough. And the fact of the matter, who says you're not good enough? Well, if that's the feelings that you're having, then Roosevelt says no one can make you feel inferior without your position. The second life position is what we call the aggressive position, which says, I'm better than you. Okay, I'm better than you. Okay, I think someone sent me a text and I'll just come to that more. I'm better than you. Are you with me? It's very aggressive. It puts it, it gives the impression, and I've seen single people like this, very aggressive. I'm better than you, and so on and so forth. The third one is what is the most dangerous one of the four. I call it the paralysis, which really says, I'm not okay, you're not okay, and nobody is okay. It's a lifestyle which says, I don't really care. And I've seen people in that position too. But the fourth one is the one that I would recommend, not just to singles, but to me and to everybody, which is the assertive lifestyle, which says, I'm okay, you're not okay. So the mere fact that you are not in a relationship right now, you might have been in one before, but you're not in one now, I'm still okay. I'm still beautiful. I'm still attractive. That's what a single person should be saying to themselves. I'm still beautiful. I'm still attractive. There's certainly nothing wrong with me whatsoever. I'm perfectly okay. The fact that I'm single doesn't make me not a person, doesn't make me unhappy, doesn't make me unwhole. I'm still beautiful. I'm still attractive. The fact that nobody is in my life at this present moment doesn't make me less a person or more of a person. I'm still a person. So the assertive lifestyle is the position that we should all adopt. Now, the question I would ask is, which of those four lifestyles do you spend most of your time in? Are you very passive, very reserved? You think highly of other people, but very, very lowly of yourself? Or are you the reverse of that? Very aggressive, think more highly of yourself than you should do, don't care about nobody else but yourself? Or are you in the paralysis mode, the suicidal mode, the don't care mode? But I strongly recommend the assertive mode is the position that all singles, married, and everybody should be in. Okay. Someone says if your point didn't appear there, just type it in here. My last message seems not to have appeared. I'm not sure why. The more mature you become, you learn to love yourself for who you are. Yes, that's a beautiful point. But what I would say, and I've noticed, is from the point you've made, and I read it again, the more mature you become, you learn to love yourself for who you are. The statement is a good one, but it's not true for everybody. Some people, as they get older, and the older they get, and the more that they have not got themselves into a relationship, they're not in a relationship, is the more depressed some people get. So some people become more mature and they learn more. I agree with that, but not every single person fit that bill. I wish that was true. There are some older, more older singles that have not matured and have not grown and have not learned from that, unfortunately. And that's a sad point. I hope that was a point that you were making. Someone here says, assertive lifestyle says, I'm okay, you're okay. I hope if I didn't say that, assertive lifestyle says, I'm okay. Okay, let me just clarify that point. I think I may have said it wrong, so let me accept the point that you're saying. The assertive lifestyle says, I'm okay, you're okay. In other words, it takes into consideration you on the other person. So I'm sorry if I said it the wrong way around. but I'm okay, you're okay. In other words, the assertive person says, I care as much about you as I care about myself. I love myself as much as I love you, and so on. Let me pick up on a point that Sharon made. I'm not one of these people who believe they are unattractive. Good point. Not being in a relationship. That comes from low esteem, which is the low esteem is to do with a passive position, which is very, very true. You must love and value yourself first before you can love anyone. Remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Value yourself. And Sharon, that comment alone is just so beautiful. And you know, I do see, and I'm surrounded by. I would say, me, Errol Williams would say, I am surrounded by some of the most beautiful, most attractive, not just in terms of facial looks, but very attractive with their personality around me than I could ever imagine. It's just amazing. But what I don't want, and which is really I'm fighting for, is exactly the point you have made, Sharon, is that singles who value themselves and realize that you don't need a relationship to be happy. You should be happy before you go into one. You don't need to be in a relationship to have fun. You know, there are 5 single ladies I know. They're based in Manchester. I used to run a course in Manchester for them. When I say for them, for an organization that one of them was involved in called Inspire. It was a community project for BME, Black and Minority Ethnic Community, Black and Asian. So I ran the program for them up in Manchester. And we got talking about what she does as a single. This is one of the most intelligent, beautiful, amazing person that I've ever met. And I was talking to her and asking her about what does she do for fun and life and so on. She says, well, she got together with, and this is a suggestion to any single out there. She said she got together with 3 others of her single friends, there's 4 of them, and they bought a timeshare in Jamaica. And every year they go to Jamaica and have one of the most amazing holidays they can possibly have. I was taken back by it. She says when they go, she said it's one of the most phenomenal, fantastic time that they have. And every time now and then I will phone her and just have a laugh and say, when have you last been? And she would give me an update as to exactly what she has done. And I think that to me is absolutely amazing. This is these singles saying, you know what, we value ourselves. And we're not going to wait upon other people in order for us to have fun. We're going to have fun no matter what the situation or what the case is. We're not going to wait for other people to come into our lives, you know, to be able to do that. They're going to do that anyway. Not only are they doing this holiday together, but they're also in business together. I want you to notice that. They're also in business together. They're actually running a business as well as they're actually out partying and having an extremely wonderful, wonderful time. So I think that singles can have the most amazing time. And a lot of singles do, as a matter of fact, you know, a lot of singles do. They don't just stay around and you know, bore themselves to death. They do have a lot of fun. So Sharon, your point is extremely powerful. And I want to read it again. I'm not one of these people who believe they are unattractive. And you're certainly, if I know this is Sharon, I'm talking about, you're certainly not unattractive. Not being in a relationship, that comes from low esteem, and totally true. And going back to the point Roosevelt made, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. You must love and value yourself first. You know, you must love and value yourself first. And I'm going to be using this step before you can love anyone. Remember, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Value yourself. And I think this is a powerful, advice, not just to singles, by the way, but we're talking about singles tonight. And I think this is the most powerful point that is made by you, Sharon. Value yourself, respect yourself. You love yourself, and you can't love yourself too much. And I suppose there is a saying that you can love yourself to the extreme that it's only you in the picture. Does that make sense? So we have to be careful of that. So appreciate that very much. Let me move on then to another question that I have. How do you cope without sex? Is it something you find hard to do? Now, it's interesting actually, because I'm a realist. And what I mean by that is I tell it as it is. Now, I am married, so this does not affect me. And I suppose I'm not going to throw this question out there unless somebody chooses to answer this privately. I do know, and I'm not stupid, that a lot of single people are sexually active. I do know that. Some people do own up to me, but not every single person is sexually active. That I also know. And therefore, one has to cope with the biological makeup of the human body. And there is an issue around that. And I've had single people talk to me about that. Now, if anybody wishes to comment on this, either publicly or privately, you can actually do so. You can actually send me a text, or you can actually send me, a link, information privately here, and I will not call out your name. But, this we are in a real world, and we are faced with reality. There are those singles who are not sexually active, and they would like to be, but they're not. And as a result of that, there is a biological makeup and a biological understanding that our body has to go through. And this is normal. This is, as the Christian would say, the way God created the human body. So there's nothing wrong or sinful about a person feeling sexually or otherwise. But the question is, how does one cope with it? How does one deal with it? One single sister said, I won't call her name, I don't think she's on the show, but she says, she puts it this way: what do you do when you're burning up? That was her way of put it. And then I asked her, I says, what do you do when you're burning up? She says, what can I do but burn up? Think about what she has said. Now, that may not be the case with some people. Some people have actually told me that they're just going to have a cold shower. That's what some people say. Okay. But I was rather very interested with this comment that, she describes it as she's burning up. And as a result of that, I asked her, what do you do? And she says, what can I do but burn up? And as I said before, some talk about the fact that they actually go and have a cold shower. Some have told me, in fact, that they do other things, and so on and so forth. I won't necessarily go through that online at the moment. But what's your comment? What's your thoughts? Do you have one that you would like to share privately or not? I know that this can be a tough question for many to deal with, but these are the realities of what singles have to go through. But you'd be amazed as well that a lot of married people go through that too. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. There's a lot of married people that are being starved of sex in their relationship by their partner. And then the same question is asked of them is, how do you cope with it? And that's why you find there's so much divorce, so much fighting and separations that are going on, because many are using sex as a weapon in their relationship. Yeah. That's the reality. I was listening to Anthony Robbins, and he was making a point this week. I thought it was really strange, but it was really true. He says women need a reason to have sex. Men just need a place to have sex. Now, let me say it again. women need a reason to have sex, but men only need a place, a bed or somewhere like that, and so on and so forth. And it's interesting comment. I think it has a lot of ring of truth to it, and a lot of married couple will tell you that seems to be true. May not be true in all people's circumstances, but certainly we believe in the majority it rings to be true. So sex is a major issue within single life. And I think personally, the more we talk about these things is the more we move away from these, what we call taboo subjects. And we help people. Because if singles are saying, well, this is what I do, this is how I cope with it, then at least, other people can learn from that and say, well, okay, fine. I see how you cope with it. And especially the fact that you've been in that position for so many years and I'm just starting out, so to speak. At least I can learn, the younger women can learn from the older women, or the younger men can learn from the older men, because it's not just women that are single, but there are men that are single. I know a few men, one man I know who's 50 years of age and he's single. And a lot of people would look at him and say, well, what's wrong with him? I know another brother, I think he's over 40 and he's also single. Another person would say, well, what's wrong with him? That would be the case in that men would ask men, what's wrong with him? And I could think of 3 men right now over the age of 40. One is 50, one is over 50 and are single. And I've heard people say, what's wrong with them? I've heard it. It must be that something is wrong with him as to why he's still single. That is wrong. No wonder Jesus said you should not judge. Are you with me? And so we make judgments based upon our own perceptions and so on. Okay, let me move on to another point. You can always come back on any other points. Do you feel that you have a fulfilled life without a partner, or do you feel like you are missing out? Well, the reality is, and I speak for myself, is I am sometimes given the impression by some singles around me, not all, so please don't get me wrong, that some feel they're missing out on something. Well, that could be true in one sense, but it's not really true in all senses. I mean, realistically. Now, someone is calling me, but I can't answer the phone. The point here is that, do you feel that you have a fulfilled life without a partner? And it is a sad question, I think, because the question one would have to ask oneself is, what is a fulfilled life? What is a fulfilled life? And what's your answer? What's your thoughts? Because that's the question I would ask to somebody, is what really is a fulfilled life? Let me just read the comments here. Someone says, check text message, but I'm not getting any text message coming through, unfortunately. Right. Okay. Check text message. Okay. Text from the phone. Okay. My apologies. I'm checking the text over here. I'm just going to read this. It says, coping without sex is easier sometimes than at other times. Sometimes it is easy to deal with. At other times, the feelings are intense. I think I'll read that again, because some of these points, we're not going to put people's names in this, but some of these points I'm going to put up at the website. I'm going to put the questions up at the website and put some of the comments that we have received underneath them, so that people can also continue the dialogue and response that has been given, and they can add their own comments. But I think this point is really so powerful. Coping without sex is easier sometimes than at other times. Sometimes it's easy to deal with, other times the feelings are intense. And that's exactly what the other person that I was dealing with said when we talk about the fact that she's burning up. You know, she didn't say she's burning up all the time, but she's on fire. And that's a God-given feeling that one has to manage, one has to cope with, one has to deal with. It's nothing wrong or sinful that a person have these intense burning desires, because it's a part of the biological makeup of the human body. And therefore we have to deal with that. We shouldn't be, what's the word? We shouldn't feel as though something is wrong in order to talk about these things. We need to talk about them. We need to help one another. We need to share with one another. We need to get ideas from one another, because when we hear other people share their experience, we can learn from that. And then we can say, you know what? I thought I was the only one going through this, only to find out I'm not the only one. And there is the possibility of learning from somebody else. You are often accused of being too picky and choosy or too fussy. Wow. Yeah, in fact, I think I have an idea about what you're saying there. The facts of the matter is this, okay? And I'm giving you my experience from singles I've spoken to, and I'll give you one in particular. Let's call her name Louise, and it's a fictitious name, okay? So I said to Louise, Louise, why weren't you married Johnny? And she says, but Johnny is just got too much baggage. Johnny is just not, first of all, she said Johnny is not a Christian. So she refuses to marry somebody who's not a Christian. Then John comes along, and I say to her, then what's wrong with John? And she says, well, John is very, very protective, very argumentative, and he seems to be very abusive. Now, listen to this carefully, okay? It's your life, and you can't just go pick up any and anybody, because you might end up running out of the frying pan, you know the saying, straight into the fire. So when people say you're too choosy, you're too picky, you're too fussy, what really are they saying? Would they then take the person that they're saying you're too picky about? Would they take that person on? Would they take on that abusive man? That man who has no ambition, who smokes marijuana, who beats up his girl? Are you with me? We all have to have values, and we all have to have standards. And if the person that you are intending on marrying doesn't fit in with some of the basic principles, then you might find yourself in issues. Hear what a Bible verse says in Genesis. It says it's not good for the man to be alone. Now, I've heard Dr. Miles Monroe speak about this, and one of the points he made is it's good for a man to be alone if he is not yet sorted himself out to some degree. One of the things he said is he should have at least got a job at 50 or 40. He should have at least, he shouldn't be unemployed for 20 years. I mean, the chances are you pick up an unemployed guy to come into your life who's been unemployed for 20 years, who doesn't go look for a job, doesn't try, you might have a serious challenge on your hands. So when people say that you're too fussy or you're too picky, I'd love to have a conversation with them, actually. I'd love to have a conversation with that person, but you're too picky, choosy, or too fussy. but you have to be wise. You know, just because you would like to get into a relationship doesn't mean you should enter into it as a fool. You've got to enter it with your head, not your heart. I want to say that again. When you enter into a relationship with a man or woman, etc., you want to enter into it with your head as well as your heart, but make sure your head is involved, your mind, that is. Think about what you're doing and weigh up all the pros and cons before you say, I do. And Bishop T.D. Jakes, in fact, has you might find this, in fact, on YouTube, and it was a series called Before I Say I Do. Before you say I do. And I thought that's a powerful, powerful, powerful thing. So I'm going to just put these up and then you can see what they are. I'm just going to quickly run through them. There's another one was, how do you manage with raising a son as a single mother? Now, not every single person have children. But one of the hardest thing to do in the United Kingdom is to raise a child by yourself. It's not impossible. And some single mothers have done a far better job than a married couple have done. And I've seen that with my own eyes. However, the majority is not the case. There was some research done not too long ago which shows the effect or the impact that fatherlessness has on society, what it has on the single person, women, what it has on the family, what it has in the child life, etc., etc., etc. It would be great to get a copy of that, and I think we will try and probably put that on the website. The impact or the effect of fatherlessness is amazing. Now, who do we blame for fatherlessness? You know, everybody's circumstance is different, and we have an epidemic on our hands. You know, we have a major epidemic on our hand, and this is a subject that we have to talk about, because if we don't talk about it, how are we going to resolve it? If we don't talk about it, how are we going to understand it? We need to face these issues. We need to have conferences. We need to have webinars. We need to come together to say, well, how do we deal with these issues that we have? They exist. Let me tell you something. I was doing some training once in Feltham Prison with some young black men under the age of 21, 16 to 21. And there's quite a lot of them in the room. And I said, what is the thing that you're most proud of in your life? What I heard next blew me away. Now, I used to be a young black man, and I never in my days had that concept that this young man shared with me. I was absolutely blown away. He said the thing that he's most proud of in life is to be able to have 3 different women pregnant at the very same time. Now, try and work that one out. This guy was absolutely serious. This was the thing that he was most excited about. This was his greatest achievement in life. To have 3 separate women pregnant at the very same time. That's alarming. Where did he learn this from? Where did he get this concept from? And that's why we have to deal with these issues. We have to tackle them. Somebody has to tackle them. Somebody has to deal with these issues because they're real and they're hurting us. They're hurting our society. So I think that it's important for us to recognize that, you know, the raising of children in single homes, it'd be good to get the testimonies or the stories of single people, men or women, because I know a chap who is a single man. His wife left him with the children, and he had to raise a boy and a girl. And sometimes when I listen to his frustration, it's amazing. It's rarely that you'll find a male in that particular position, but there are quite a lot of men who are raising their children on their own. But also bear in mind that the questions that we had were specifically directed to our guest presenter and not generally to everybody, but these questions do absolutely fit in with a lot of people. But the point I'm making, however, is this, that we do have a major challenge in our hands in terms of dealing with this situation that we are confronted with: singleness, fatherlessness, and so on. It's a major topic. And I've decided that I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to make whatever contributions that I can make before I die. And I will support others who are doing the same things. So I'm going to make whatever noise I can make, whatever impact I can make. I will talk to men. I will try to reach them. And if I have to have some men's conferences, which I do in the church, and talk to men about their attitudes and behavior, and dispelling from a lot of our young men the idea that they can abuse the women and think it's okay. It's not good. And we have to make sure the training starts at home. Another question I had for our guest presenter was, as a successful businesswoman, how do you balance your work life and home life? And I do find with a lot of professional singles that there is that struggle in terms of balancing home with work and so on. But some do it perfectly well. They balance it perfectly well. Another question was, is singleness a choice you have made, or are you still waiting for Mr. Right? And I would, it's interesting that I've never come across a single, and I'm not saying they don't exist, who have said it's a choice. But there are those who don't want to get into a relationship. There are people like that don't want a relationship. They just don't want to go into a relationship. And for them, it's a choice. They're not waiting for Mr. Right or Mr. Black or Mr. whatever. They're not waiting for anybody. But some people are. What are your social interests? And one thing I would say, certainly not just to singles, but primarily to singles tonight, is have lots of fun. Go out into the world and explore the world. Just have lots of fun. You don't have to have a lot of money to have fun, but it does help. But have a lot of fun. Play games, take up a hobbies, whatever you can do. Just have fun. That's really what I want to share with you. What are you feeling when you're out with friends and they have brought their partners along with them? Now, it's interesting, that question, because oftentimes I go out myself and my wife's not with me. And I'm seeing all these couples, and I sometimes feel a way about it, me personally, wishing my wife was there. But then there are those who don't have a wife to wish she was there or he was there or whatever the case might be. And these are things that, as I say, we need to present, we need to talk about. We will be doing more webinars where we can address more of these things. Now, if you would like to do a webinar with me, please email me on the email address that you see there, scholar.uk@virgin.net. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can actually do the webinar from your mobile phone, from your iPad or computer. Computer's always going to be better. And wherever you are in the world, as long as you've got internet access, you can come on the show and we can dialogue and talk together. So I'm looking for people who are willing to talk with me and share with me. And the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of people who don't want to do this. I don't know whether it's the stigmatization or what it is, but we need to talk, okay? And if nobody talks to me, I'll just keep talking by myself until I get somewhere. What do you feel have been the important successes in your life? And also, what have been the frustrations? Because as always, there are frustrations and there are successes. And what were they? Okay. And final question was going to be, what advice or encouragement would you give to singles today? And let me see if there's any comment. One certain advice and comment that I would certainly give to singles today, and it was said, you know, is value yourself, love yourself, appreciate who you are, that you are beautiful, that you are great, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I think it starts there. I believe it starts with respecting myself, you know, saying to myself, you know what, I'm going to be assertive. It doesn't matter what people think or say. They can say what they like, but I'm going to do me. Does that make sense? I'm going to do me. Hope you understand that. Meaning that I'm going to love me. I'm going to appreciate me. I'm going to love my company. I'm going to love everything about myself, and what I don't like, I'm going to change. Okay. A second thing I would say to singles is have fun. You know, there's a lot of singles I know, they have a lot of fun. Meet up with other singles and have fun. Have great fun. You know, life is too short for us to hang it up on depressive thoughts and words and actions and so on. It's 9 o'clock and I must end. And I want to end on this note just to also invite you to, you know, just to take a visit at, someone says, live simply, laugh often, love always. I like that. Live simply, laugh often, and love always. Lots of L. Live simply, laugh often, and love always. I invite you to visit singlesdirect.net. And also we're running a course in November. As I made mention, this is not a church event. This is not a church thing. This is not the Church of God of Prophecy. This is Errol Williams, or should I say Singles Direct. I'm doing this on behalf of Singles Direct. So visit Singles Direct. There's a team that's involved in that. And there's also a course that we're running, not just for singles, but for singles as well. And it's called Pursuing Excellence. It's all the information is there when you visit it. I will be sending out another webinar link for another singles webinar. We intend to do around 1 or 2 a month. And Singles Direct is dedicated to singles. It's a website that if you have a single story, you got your story, whether you want to use your name or not, and you would like to share it with that, just send it to us, send it to the email that you see there. And we'd be delighted to put that on our website to share your story. It's also a paid membership website. And also there are training courses that we are running online as well for those who are members. But there was a lot of free stuff on it as well. So go to it, have a look, singlesdirect.net. If there are no questions for me at this time, I will sign off. Again, I want to apologize for my guest that was unable to come. Really do apologize, but I hope that you being here was of some benefit. Thank you for those of you who shared so beautifully, and the comments that you've made will continue to ring loud on the internet. We will make absolutely certain of that. So I want to say thank you so much for coming to the webinar. We will send out more links to you. I don't have any dates set yet. I will discuss that with the team over at Singles Direct, and we'll be back again. But if you would like to appear in any webinar with myself, where you know we can have a dialogue and discuss that other people may be able to listen, you don't have to move from your home. All you need is a webcam or your camera on your phone, and we can talk. I hope that makes sense to you. So I want to say thank you so much for coming into this webinar, and appreciate you guys lots. Love you guys lots. And if you have any question or any comment whatsoever about anything relating to singles, or if you have any ideas or thoughts, please either text them to me or call me about them, or email that to me, and we will respond to that. So love you guys. Take care of yourself. Until next time. Bye for now.